And I don't understand why this guy is so popular. How does someone so mediocre continue to be so popular? Good morning. I'm Josh. Welcome to Josh's Bookish Voyage. Today we're going to have ourselves a little bitty vlog. This vlog, which I've already talked about a bit on my channel, is going to be the Final Girls reading vlog. Which is to say, I'm going to be reading 3 books that center around the Final Girls trope. A reread that I've already read is going to be The Last Final Girl by Stephen Graham Jones. And this was a story about a girl who I think survived something, and then she has to survive another thing. Like, there's one attack in the town that she's just survived, and now she's not going to survive it again. I seem to remember this being somewhat confusing because it felt like it was styled in the form of a movie, which was just, the way it cut scenes was kind of hard to follow, but still an interesting one, and one that I'm intrigued to return to, particularly when it comes to how it compares to this other one. Oh, Final Girls by Riley Sager. Hold that thought. This one being, you know, your generic thriller. I think I've heard mixed reviews about it from people who like Riley Sager. I'm someone who has mixed feelings about Riley Sager. He's entertaining, usually rarely with substance, in my opinion. I also find it difficult to believe the threat, which I've said plenty of times before. It's just, I don't believe he's going to kill off his main character. I'm looking forward to that happening. Shock me. And then the other one is going to be Grady Hendrix's The Final Girl Support Group. This one I haven't read, and honestly, it's part of the reason I'm doing this because I really want to read Grady Hendrix, and I don't own his books yet. It's a good way to fit it into my TBR. So this was one that gave me the idea, because Riley Sager made a tweet or something talking shit about this book as if he did the idea first, and I thought it was naive and just really arrogant to suggest that, because, you know, he didn't invent the Final Girls trope. It's like, by definition, a trope. And also, this one came first, not this one. So I'm intrigued to see how they compare. Honestly, I'm really doing this because I want to be able to talk shit about Riley Sager's book. I guess that's who I've become, a Riley Sager hate fan. That sounds like something you might enjoy. Why don't you stick around? In the meantime, I'm going to keep cooking some of these pancakes. It is Sunday afternoon. Unfortunately, I haven't read as much as I hoped to, but I have read a good bit. And that's because I spent most of my day playing my new Oculus Quest VR. I'm loving it, by the way. It's just amazing. So much fun. I can't believe it's wireless. But when I'm not doing that, or for this last evening, part of the evening, I managed to get a couple hours of The Final Girls Support Group by Grady Hendrix read, and I'm really liking it. About 27% into it. I'm actually really enjoying this. It doesn't feel like raw horror, but it doesn't feel like a strictly thriller either. I think it's somewhere in between, and I do like that feeling, although I still prefer, like, you know, the strictly just all-in horror. But the story really has me hooked. I liked the slow pace starting out, where we just get introduced to our characters, into the mindset, and then things get real. Shit hits the fan. I'm really liking it, and I'm sitting here thinking to myself how so much feels like it's happened already, and only 27%, like a fourth into the book. I am super excited to keep reading this, and hopefully I won't get too distracted to finish the book, because I also realize that this vlog is happening the week preceding the upcoming slow read. But I'm decided not to prioritize this over this, just because I want to read these instead right now. I'm just going to embrace what I'm feeling at the moment and not stress too much about goals or obligations. So the group, it consists of a number of different types of Final Girls. Like, if you imagine what would a woman be like after undergoing this experience, we see a whole array of them. Our main character, at least right now, seems to be the person who expects it always to happen again, who has put everything into their life to, like, invested everything in their life into preparing for a second attack, for having to undergo this all over again. Basically, think the new Halloween movie with Jamie Lee Curtis. Honestly, part of me wonders whether or not that book was at all structured based off that movie. Like, the overarching plot is completely different, but this main character feels so attuned to Jamie Lee Curtis's character in this new Halloween movie. It's hard not to imagine there wasn't some inspiration there, but who knows? Maybe it wasn't. It still works really well. Also, if you haven't seen the new Halloween, it's actually really good, so you should check it out. But I'm enjoying it. I'm really happy to be reading it. This is a good start to the vlog. I am cooking. I wish I gave you bee footage, but it's been so long since I've been doing vlogs, I forget. I should be doing that. Maybe I'll show you some bee footage as I finalize whatever it is I'm making. It doesn't have a name. It's more just a bunch of things that I own thrown together and hoping for the best. I'll catch y'all later, probably tomorrow. Good morning to you. It's me, Josh, from earlier in this video. I have finished that book that I was reading, Grady Hendrix's The Final Girl Support Club, The Final Girl Support Club. And I really liked it. They come to give it between 4.5 to 5 stars. I feel like my feelings are kind of more broad than usual, maybe between 4 and 5 stars, but still settling on 4.5. Point is, I really liked the book. I thought it was well written, greatly paced. It was chock full of twists, but not for the sake of twists. Like, sure, I'm sure it was there for the sake of twists, but I felt like it all sort of it made sense. Like, from the get-go, I was like, wow, this shit's getting going. And then I realized, like, 25% of the book, there's so much left. The twists, I think, largely depend on our main narrator being somewhat unreliable, just because of her experience in the past makes her paranoid, and we never know whether or not what she's thinking is true or just her misleading herself. But also the little added layer of just everything is just so confusing, like so much is going on, and it's natural for anyone, even someone who has been traumatized as her, to be confused or misled, and that is very apparent in this book. I don't know, I feel like people are more used to thrillers, might be more capable of recognizing who the bad guy is. I don't know. I thought it worked really pretty well. I was surprised, but I'm pretty easily surprised. The story still centered on that one main character primarily. It was really focusing on the entire group of people with different type of final girls, like I said before, all from the perspective of this one final girl who is the most paranoid, who is the one who really focuses on trying to save everyone from whatever this monster is. The book itself, I feel like, walks the line of horror, but never quite gets there. I think it's closer than many thrillers that I read, and I really appreciate it for that, but I still would have liked it more intense. I don't know, it was pretty gory, like on the level of a horror book, so maybe I'm wrong to assume that. It was, I think, enough to make me really like it, but a great book overall. Definitely better than the 2 Riley Sager books I read. So which one am I going to read next? That's the real question. That is the real question. So there's 2 ways I can approach this. I have a feeling that if I read Riley Sager first, I'm going to be comparing the 2 books, and it'll make him at a disadvantage, just inherently, because I'm biased. And if I wait, maybe I'll be less likely to remember all the details on exactly why it's not as good. But I don't know if I want to be fair. This isn't about being fair. So I think I'm going to start with this one, just because I think it'll be the quickest read. And keeping in mind, I still need to get to this before Sunday. Today is Tuesday, and hopefully I'll be done with it by tomorrow at the latest. Hopefully be done by Thursday, which gives me Friday, Saturday, Sunday to read that book. I feel like it's going to take the longest just because I want to pace myself. I remember not loving this one just because I struggled, big point of view. Basically, design, it felt like a horror movie, and its structure in a way that was, I felt really creative, but also really disconcerting and not in a sort of taking away from the immersion. And I really want to optimize my experience of this book going in. So let's start with this. Final Girls, a novel by Riley Sager. Will he disappoint? Only one way to find out. Actually, there are multiple ways. You could fast forward to when I read it, or you can check my Goodreads. It's probably already updated. But you should keep watching, please. Anyways, catch y'all later. It is now the evening. It's like 11 something. I've finished the book, which I told you about, and then I've started the other one, Final Girls, and oh my god, I'm really regretting reading Hendrix's book first. I feel like it was almost inevitable that I would like his more, simply because it leans more horror. Now I'm coming in to Sager's and I have this distaste for the writing style and for the story, for him as a whole, and it's like it's really clouding my ability to get into the story. And I am worried the book's going to be shitty because I expect it to be shitty, and I just have the mindset going in. Not that the book's going to be great regardless, just that, you know, it only sets the book up to fail. Like, it makes the book even worse than it would have been, and I feel bad. So maybe tomorrow my mind will be different. I don't know. I don't think it will, honestly. So far I'm not liking it. I feel overly critical about the characters, about the writing choices. It's completely subjective, and that could be entirely justified in my feelings. But I also know that I have some inherent bias when it comes to Sager. That was the entire reason I did this whole vlog, was just to shit talk Sager. And I think that's inescapable, that my bias will influence my subjective thoughts, which is unfortunate if you care to have a unbiased subjective thought, at least. So those are my thoughts so far. Maybe things will improve. I feel like I should just appreciate it for what it is, which is, you know, going to be a fun thriller. It just won't be as satisfying as Hendrix's book. I guess before I get into ranting about what I'm working on right now, I'm getting the feeling that Hendrix wrote his book as an homage to the Final Girl trope, as someone who truly loves horror and truly loves the various types of tropes that are being done, in this case, the Final Girl trope. With Sager, this, as well as his other works, at least Home Before Dark, it feels as if he's not just doing an homage because he has so much love for the genre, but instead because he wants to exploit the genre. He sees an opportunity to write a story revolving around some trope, and so he lashes onto it because it's an easy device to hook your readers in. And that's what it feels like so far. Like, I just don't feel as though he has the same passion for the trope as Hendrix. Which, how does one measure that? Entirely valid question. I think it's based off of the way the characters are written, the way he talks about it, even though I'm only just started the book, and just the way it he goes about setting up a story, how he chooses to handle the trope. And so far it's just my impression, and that impression is likely almost entirely, or at least 25%, like a solid chunk, influenced by my bias towards him. But that's my thought so far. Definitely not winning in this vlog. Now this shit, I want to be reading or playing this beautiful game. I can't, because I have a meeting tomorrow, and beyond the meeting, I need to get this done. I am currently working on something that was so close to getting published, and then I found a problem and had to redo it, and it's proving to be extremely difficult to get to the point that I need to, and it is immensely frustrating to try and figure out what to do. And the saddest part is that I'm getting more and more disfranchised, not with working in science, but with the work that I'm doing right here that I need to write about. I'm getting disenfranchised in the quality of that work, which is disappointing. My advisor says recognize the fact that, not every paper is going to be the best. It's about producing results and showing what we have, and then improving on that with time, which I do feel like I have improved on this with my future work that I'm working on. This is work that I'm having to return to. It's still extremely frustrating to have to think about the fact that I'm going to end up writing this up and just recognize that the quality is not as good as it was, or that it could be, if it wasn't for the very many limitations that are going on in my approach. But that's my frustration right now. That's my life outtake. Let's get to work. Right now I'm just gonna think about some new approaches to get this shit working the way I want. Where's my pen? Damn it!
The very next evening.
I am done with book 2, Final Girls by Riley Sager. This is probably between a 2.5 and a 3-star. It is his most mediocre book yet. And I hated, let me phrase it, I love to hate the last one he had, the one with the riding and the driving, because it was just so bad, but it was at least mildly entertaining. This one was just meh all the way through. This is the second mediocre thriller I've read this week, and this one was just why? What was his books all seem to feel the same. I think the Home Before Dark was the closest to feeling like the homage he was going for, but this one, it just didn't feel like a Final Girls scenario. It did not feel like a Final Girl film. It did not feel like an homage. It felt like he took a flashy idea and it was the bare bones to this story. His ability to write is, I don't know, it just feels so meh. It's not suited to horror. I guess thrillers, but he's trying to be horror without actually doing horror, and it was just not great. The other problem is besides just the mediocre everything, it feels like he's rehash so many ideas. First off, this of course isn't his original idea. All of his books seem to be rehashing an old idea, which is ironic that he would call out other books for daring to use the Final Girl trope. But in any case, his own books mirror each other. This one, yet again, like the one that I read about driving a car with someone in the car with you, that one centered on this main character who had a terrible memory, meaning she forgot certain instances where it was convenient for the plot. Here we have a main character who conveniently has amnesia about what happened to her. And in both books, we have a conflict centering around someone demanding that these individuals remember what they forgot, as if forcing them will work. That's something that's this the same plot point used in both books. Not to mention, you have a memory loss. You have someone who wants to force you to remember for sentimental reasons. I feel like there was something else. I just forgot what it was. Oh yes, I remember there's a third aspect to this, which is that I just even though they have amnesia or memory loss in certain situations, of course that will go away the moment the plot demands it. The moment we need to know the information, the moment it comes about. His inability to write a story with suspense that isn't centered on some massive assumption, some massive convenient plot point is shocking. And I don't understand why this guy is so popular. How does someone so mediocre continue to be so popular? I recognize that I didn't know him very well, the first book, and I've now read 3 of his books, and I'm going to read the 4th one because I've heard Lock Every Door. I've heard that's his best one, so hopefully it'll be good. But overall, I think he's a very mediocre writer, and I don't understand why he's so popular. And I say that objectively, I really do. Everyone's entitled to their opinion, and my opinion is that you can't like this book. Kidding. It's not good. Yet again, Riley Sager disappoints and makes me ask, how the hell is he so popular? What I will say is that I know I gave some critique when I first started it because I had trouble getting into it because of just how blatantly different it was from Hendrix's book. After sleeping on it, I was able to get into the story at least, even if I wasn't as enthused. But yeah, why would you read this when you could read Ray Anderson's book? This book is not only more compelling, better written, it is a true homage. I said this already, it's the bare bones, but it's we have authors who truly love the genre or truly love the tropes, And you could see that in the writing. Then you have authors who just want a shtick to sell to the readers, which, to be fair, he knows how to advertise, or rather, his publisher knows how to advertise. Like, I read his other book, his newest book, because it sounded really good. The premises do sound great, and they never got good. Why am I fiddling with this up and down, looking at it as if I have something to see? I don't know. That's the human condition, my human condition of being weird. I'm still doing it as we talk. Let's move on to this. I had a long day. I was at school today, doing labs, TA, basically. Those are 2-hour segments. I did 3 of those, 10:30 to 5:30, and now I'm here. And it was been raining nonstop. I'm hoping I get footage to show you of the flooding. I was late to school because of the flooding. On the way home, I chose just to, to see how bad it was. I intentionally went towards where I knew it would probably be flooding. But I got me to get to this book. But now let's go on to this, the one book that I've actually read. And I will say that so far, based off my opinions of it in the past, I'd say I'd put this behind Grady Hendrix's book. But definitely far ahead of Bryce Eggers' book. My memory of this is thinking that I didn't love the structure. I feel like it's structured as if it's meant to be like you're watching a horror film. So in that sense, it's like so true, like the most true to the trope that it's trying to pay homage to. But the structuring of it that way, I found more difficult to get immersed in. So not as effective a book, but probably the best for the genre. And I'm curious if my feelings will change this go around, since I'll be more familiar with it. And so let's get on with things. Future Josh here. I recorded this next segment later that evening, but unfortunately the first half of it got completely drowned out by the pouring rain. Like, it's like static, you can't hear anything. But I open up this segment where I want to make a point to demonstrate to you just the serious, I guess, tone of the book and the way it's structured from the very get-go by reading to you the opening segment of the book. That was mostly cut out by the rain. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to insert like opening segment of the audiobook so you can get a feel of just how much like you're watching a movie it is, and then I'll get on to discussion.
Act 1. A wide, grimy blade cuts into a neck hard before we can look away, the blood welling up black around the meat, the sound wicked and intimate. Before we can even process the rest of the scene, it's nighttime, it's that cabin in the woods we all know. It's a blonde girl standing there shrieking. We back off this kill, come around behind this guy's body that's already twitching, is only held up now by the blade. We back off so we can see through the new wedge carved out of his neck, so we can see the blonde girl framed by it, her bikini top spattered with blood and gore, her chin moving with her mouth trying for a word, but nothing. The screen doesn't fade to black, it slams there, takes us with it.
Like, you get the picture. It's like reading a script. It's like you're watching a horror movie or having a horror movie spoken to you. Like if you have the visually impaired version of a film, you have the audio version where they'll narrate to you what's actually happening in the scene. And that's what this sounds like. It's really interesting, and I think a fantastic homage to the genre. Like, already those first few lines, that first paragraph is bloody and horrible and terrific. But it's also extremely disconcerting. I'm not going to lie. Extremely hard to follow this already. So let's continue.
The next day.
I haven't read much today. I haven't done much of anything besides school. I haven't read tonight. I didn't even read on the way to or from school. I am liking The Last Final Girl. I don't think I've read much more since the last time we chatted, though. I guess what I'll say is that it's hard to get into. Not in a bad way. I mean, yes, it's always in a bad way to get into a book, but just in a way that it requires more focus than most books. Even especially his last 2 I've read. And part of that is just the structure, right? And like, it feels as if the book is kind of flat, but not like in the sense that he's a bad writer. Like, the story is there and it's very much not flat, but it's the fact that it's told like a movie. It's like one step removed from just being a script. And reading a script, all the in-between text can be like, it takes away immersion, right? And it can just be harder to picture everything. And me trying to simultaneously follow the content while we're moving from scene to scene, like seeing things play out in a scene and then move to the next scene, it's easy to follow in a visual form. I mean, but if you're doing it on text, going from one character to another, from one scene to the next, it's like, it's just hard to stay connected. Like, there are multiple perspective books that I read, like books with multiple perspectives rather, and I often struggle, like at the beginning of each chapter, to recognize, oh, we just switched chapters, this is the new perspective, and it can be hard to do that. But so far, I mean, aside from the fact that it's just harder to read, I'm still enjoying it. I still feel like this is the truest homage to the Final Girl trope so far. I feel like I am following the story a bit better now. Several other things obviously stick out because I've read it before. And there's like a lot of girls, and it's trying to figure out who's who. And I think I know who's who at this point. Like, we have our main Final Girl from the beginning of the story, where it's like basically the ending of a horror movie, and she's a virgin who survived. And then there's the self-proclaimed slut who is doing her thing without spoiling the book, and we're going to see what's going to play out. I honestly don't remember where the story went. I remember the beginning better than anything else. I'm not sure what quite the thing is, but the shtick is we have this big buy, basically like this Jason parent, like this serial killer who he thought had died, and there's this talk that, is there going to be a sequel? Is there going to be a sequel? Are we in between sequels at this moment? Very meta stuff, and I really, really appreciate that. But I mean, having high school girls reference movies like all sorts of horror movies, I love to hear it, I love to see it, but I find it hard to believe that they're going to be that immersed into it. I mean, I find people my own age who seem very detached from horror, let alone teenagers, still interesting. I don't know if I'm going to read any more tonight. I'm going to read it all tonight, rather. I want to. I want to do a lot of things, and I wish I wanted to read more, but I don't. So I'm torn between playing more VR, which I've done a lot today, watching Foundation on Apple TV, or I guess the other option would be to read. Yeah, actually, that's the only three options there. What should I do? I honestly don't know what I want to do. Help me.
The next day.
Future Josh now becoming present Josh, as the past and present meet in a final convergence to close off this beautiful vlog. I lost my audio for my last clip. Not even sure it was my last clip. I just in the last clip I filmed, the audio didn't work. So we're here now. Hopefully I remember everything. I think I do well enough. And also, luckily, I said most of what I thought about the book anyways before we had to close things out. So let's get on to it. Where? I had them sitting here for the longest time. Let's just talk about them. The Last Final Girl, the last book that I read. My feelings are remarkably unchanged, not just from when I talked to you, but from the last time that I read it. Generally speaking, I feel the same. It's an enjoyable book that is immensely creative and unique in what it does, which is genuinely true for almost every book that I've read by Stephen Graham Jones. However, the uniqueness of this one, I think, took away the immersion. I stand by that. It's just hard to really get into it, but I do think it's worth reading, even if it's not like the most perfect experience, because it's such a unique experience, especially for horror fans, because it is absolutely true that it is the best horror homage I have ever read, not just in these three books, but in all of these books. It's such an amazing, true love there that Jones has, and it's so apparent in all of his works, at this one especially. I know he has other books that I think like styled in similar ways that I want to get to. This one was really good, but it was also hard to get immersed from my personal perspective, which leaves me hovering about 3.5 stars. There was one maybe slight nudge in my feelings here, which is that before I think I gave it 3 to 3.5, settling on 3.5. But now I'm feeling more like 3.5 to 4. Still probably settling on 3.5, but like on Goodreads it says 4. So I get like a slight nudge to feel like if I'm here in 3.5, like with the pendulum sort of is gravitated slightly to the right now. The narrative was not what I remembered it, and I don't know if that was just because I was confused before, or if maybe I had just forgotten. But now I think I have a good, like I can tell you now. I'm not going to. I don't want to spoil it, but I remember what happens, which is nice. And I liked it. It was very twisty. I feel like I must not have followed, like I said, more than I thought, because how I could forget some of those twists, I don't know. Like I knew certain things, certain people would die, some people wouldn't, and now it's like I remember that. I don't know, but good experience overall. Other than that, I guess let's just close out the vlog. For those who fast forward, I loved Grady Hendrix's book. As favorites go, it's probably the top of these three. Next would be The Last Final Girl, which I just gave you all my thoughts on. Finally, the worst of the bunch would be Final Girls by Ray Sager, which was just not good, not worth reading in my opinion. The worst part about this is he's not just last place from a good book standpoint, but also last place in the how good of an homage, how good of a horror trope is it. And in that sense, I would swap Hendricks and Jones in that sense. But in both, we have Cy Sager in the last place. And I'm very irked that he's so popular, not just because there are more popular authors that are worthy of attention, and because they're just not good. Like, he keeps getting all this funding, all this publicity to support books that have these flashy ideas that are just leached from other people. Ironic that he would accuse other people of that, which I've said already. Point being that his ideas are the flashiest things about his books, and also the best parts. There's rarely much depth there, and that is just as true here. I'm leaving this still. This is Angry, R.L.A. Sager. I still have one more book in my TBR by him that I'm still going to read. But if you have a choice, everyone has a choice so far as there is free will, which is not. But the point is don't read it. You can if you want. I'm not going to tell you can't read it, obviously, but I highly advise against it. It's just bad. It's not worth your time, in my opinion. So that's a lot of rambling. So let's close this out. Thank you so much if you made it this far. I had a lot of fun filming this. A little trouble now and again, and I hope you enjoyed it. And I will see y'all next time. And happy Halloween.